Okay, this is a video on how to create your outline, thesis, and annotated bibliography. And the first thing I want to say is this is, even though I'm showing a specific assignment, this video is meant to be very general. So don't necessarily, if this isn't your particular assignment for your class, then obviously follow the one that's appropriate for your own work. Anyway, so when you have this type of assignment, the first thing you need to do is find out what you have to do for the essay. So in this particular assignment, it needs to be 1,250 words, about 5 pages. You need 5 secondary sources. And for this particular assignment, absolutely no websites can be used as secondary sources. You also need at least one primary source. This can be a written document from, in this case, for this class, Ancient World, or it can be archaeology. Okay, so now that we've gone over the assignment, I'm just going to go up to the instructions for creating an outline, annotated bibliography, and thesis, and then I'm going to show you how to do this. So, of course, what you first have to do is pick a topic, do your research, and then create an outline. Now, I'm going to switch documents here. So I've given you a question here, and usually what you always start doing with a research paper is thinking of a question that you want to answer. For this particular class, one of the questions that you can look at is, how do people in the Neolithic deal with climate change? Okay, so there's your question. Now the thesis is going to be the answer to this. So how do you do this? First of all, obviously you start doing research. Now this particular assignment, you need 5 secondary sources, so 5 journals or 5 books, plus a primary text, and in this case the topic is Neolithic. You will probably be using archaeology for this because there's not too much writing during the Neolithic. Anyway, you have to do your research to answer this question. And then once you do the research and you start to answer the question, say you get, how do people deal with climate change? They did it by doing X, by doing Y, and doing Z. So X, Y, Z is the result of your research. The results of your research. Now, when you have this, you have now an outline for your essay. So you can start off with, well, actually, let me back up just a second. Now you've got your results. So that is now your thesis. So you take your question here. You've got your results or your answers to this question. Now your thesis is just reconfiguring this question to a statement. So how do people in the Neolithic deal with climate change? You just make it a statement. People in the Neolithic dealt with climate change by doing X, Y, and Z, and that is your thesis. So again, the thesis is the answer to this question based on your results. Now for your outline, you can put something really easy together. So I would type your thesis, and then an easy outline is you're going to write an introduction to the problem, and then you will have a section on X, on Y, and on Z. And then you're going to have a conclusion. So this would be the outline for your paper, because what you're going to do is actually argue that these results that you get from your research answers this. So for example, how did Neolithic people deal with climate change? Well, they dealt with climate change by, say, building different types of housing. Maybe that's your X. Now what you need to do is use your research to support that. And what you should probably do when you're doing this is pretend that you're a lawyer and you're having to argue your case in front of the jury, and in this case the jury is me. So you have to convince me that this is actually one of the answers to your question. And you do this by using your research. And then you go on to the next part, and then the next part. So that is how to set up an outline. Now an annotated bibliography, this is going to be your list of all of the sources you're using. So let me just... So I've had you read for this particular class an article that's titled Holocene Fluctuations, blah, blah, blah. You're going to write that down for your annotated bibliography, and what I want are 3 sentences. for your annotated bibliography. I want you to tell me what the article is about, and then 2 sentences on how you plan on using it. You can talk about how the article supports your thesis. And again, these can be short sentences. I want to know what it's about, how you plan on using it, and you can certainly talk about how it supports your thesis. So that is the annotated bibliography. So this is, again, I've given you questions. You then create a thesis, which is the answer to this. It's done by research. So you get your list of results from your research, and then you create your outline based on this. And then for your annotated bibliography, list your 5 sources. You don't need to do the primary text here. List your secondary sources and talk about these things in 3 sentences.